12, 2020, coming up with Roland Martin Unfiltered. The election drama continues. Still no concession from Donald Trump as he continues to lie about voter fraud. Folks, it's a joke. They've lost every single time in court. Not only that, Republican efforts to make voting harder continue in Georgia as we head toward those two crucial Senate runoff races. Also, COVID-19 cases are surging at an unprecedented rate across the country. Some states, let's see here. All right, folks, some states like Texas seeing all-time highs. Also, Congresswoman Joyce Bate is going to talk to us about the future of the Congressional Black Caucus. It's time to bring the funk. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
All right, most people on both sides of the aisle know that this election is over. I mean, bottom line is here. Joe Biden is president-elect. Kamala Harris is Madam Vice President-elect. But several lawsuits are underway in 6 battleground states that President-elect Joe Biden won. One challenge has successfully triggered a full vote recount in Georgia. The suits are part of Donald Trump's campaign to invalidate ballots cast for Biden. Now, he refuses to concede and continues to allege without any evidence widespread voter fraud and a stolen election aided by a historically large number of mail-in ballots. Now, here's what's so funny, y'all. They've actually been going to court, and the judges have been asking them, so where's the evidence? They don't have any. In fact, look how bad this is. The Blaze, which is a right-wing website founded by Glenn Beck, they even admit that many of the affidavits that the Trump folks have actually presented in court are trash. This whole thing is trash. They refuse to provide any intelligence briefings for Joe Biden. They refuse to even allow the transition to begin, all because one person is salty. One person is pathetic, and that is Donald Trump. The entire Republican apparatus is all about feeding his massive ego because he just can't handle the fact that he lost the popular vote again. And so the games that they're playing, and they are games. The Republican AG of Arizona said, election's over. There's no voter fraud here. They've already checked. They've already went over the ballots. But again, you're dealing with a petulant child who can't handle losing. All you got to do is do this here. If you're at home right now, you're watching this show, just go to another window, and I want you to click loser.com. I want you to click loser.com. I want you to tell me what comes up. Folks, listen to me. I'm going to show you right now. This is a conversation that took place on Fox Business. This is a conversation with the Attorney General of Arizona. Watch this.
The Arizona Attorney General, of course, the president was not keen on Fox and others calling the state for Joe Biden election night. And indeed, in the counting process, things could narrow. It could flip. But who would know better than the Attorney General? Sir, thank you for joining us. The administration, though, did deny the Trump team's request to seal evidence in a lawsuit over, I believe, votes in Maricopa County. Where does this all stand right now, sir?
The really short answer to this, Neil, is that on election night, if you looked at the numbers, and a lot of people that are really good at politics and polling here had said that it was possible for the president to come back. And as the numbers started returning, the president started making some gains. But the reality is right now, there's, less than 50,000 votes to count, and the president would have to get about 65% of them to win Arizona. So it does appear that Joe Biden will win Arizona. That being said, our office had received more than 1,000 complaints shortly after the election dealing with bleed-throughs and people using Sharpies. We looked into that. We were able to determine that did not affect anyone's vote. They also did a random audit of 2% of the precincts, and it came back 100% that there wasn't any statistical anomalies or errors. As to the lawsuit that was filed, we are literally talking about less than 200 votes that are in question and doubt. So the reality is, even if it was possible that those votes flip, those 200 votes, I do not think it will make a difference in Arizona just because of the numbers.
That was the Attorney General of Arizona. Y'all, it's over, and the petulant child cannot handle it. Joining us right now is Eric Savage Wilson, host Savage Politics Podcast, Dr. Greg Carr, Chair, Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University, and Reese Colbert, Black Women and Views. It should be unlaughable to watch this reaction, Greg. I mean, oh my God, they're crying in Michigan. I'll tell you what. So the Fox station in Detroit, Huel Perkins, our frat brother, he hosts a show called Let It Rip, and I was on that show when I was in Detroit, which was, of course, the week before the election. And all these Trump people were saying, oh, Trump is going to come through Macomb County like a hurricane. He is going to blow everybody away. He is going to crush. He lost Michigan by about 150,000 votes. He tells me, Hillary Clinton did concede. I said, dude, what are you talking about? She gave a speech the next day and she conceded. He said, there's no video of that. I said, what are you talking about? There's literally a speech. I then read the transcript. He goes, no. There's no video. I said, fool, it is on YouTube. Every network covered it. It was in the third paragraph after she said, thank you, thank you, thank you. But this fool couldn't buy it. That's what we're dealing with here. We are dealing with unbelievably stuck on stupid people, Greg.
Absolutely. I mean, they live in an alternate universe that has been curated by the media they consume. And as usual, brother, you appealing to people with logic. Those people don't want to hear logic. There are several things going on. You got those people. You got the white nationalists who cling to Donald Trump as their avatar. You've got people like Mickey Pompous, Mike Pompeo, who is saying that he smirking because he's positioning himself for 2024. He and Smiling Mike Pence and Tom Cotton, those guys are trying to keep that coalition together. That's why they won't do it. And you got the petulant president. Jack Nicklaus today was asked about helping the president. What would you say to the president to help him transition, being a good winner or a sore loser, not be a sore loser? He was at the Masters down in Payne, near Payne College, there in Augusta, Georgia. He declined because he too is a white nationalist. So there are several things at play here. But really what they're doing is stalling for time, and they're endangering the health of folk, as I'm sure you're going to talk about in terms of COVID-19 and transition. But this is more than just being solicitous of Donald Trump. These folks want Donald Trump's white nationalist voters, that 71 million, to vote for them in 2024. And a lot of them, that's why they don't want to get into it. But, we'll see. We'll see if this is a gamble worth it. After all, it's not like we live in a nation. We live in a white nationalist settler project that we're fighting desperately against, and they're proving it right now. Damn the United States. It's whiteness before everything in this.
Reese, I had someone who called me today, and they said, but is he going to concede? I said, I don't care. I said, he doesn't have to concede. I said, 69 days from now, his ass is gone. Donald Trump, he is sitting in the Oval Office right now, on January 19th at 11:59 a.m., the Secret Service is going to walk in and say, it's time to go. If he resists, they're going to say, sir, it's time to go. You can no longer occupy this building because you're no longer president. At 12:01, it does not matter if Joe Biden has put his hand on the Bible and raised his hand. It does not matter. The Constitution states at 12:01 p.m., that man is going to be president of the United States. They will walk Trump's ass out of the Oval Office into the beast, say, drive him to Andrews Air Force Base. He can have a 10-hour rally if he wants to in the hangar. And when he's done, they will put his behind on that plane and say, where are we taking you? New York, Ireland, Mar-a-Lago, Aruba, hell, it don't matter. Where are we taking you to?
Go to hell.
And then they're going to drop his ass off. He's going to have his smaller Secret Service detail and that wonderful blue and white plane that says President of the United States on the side, United States of America on the side, is going to fly back to Andrews Air Force Base and will not be called Air Force One when he's on it. So I keep telling people, y'all, stop. I don't even care. He's lost. Bye-bye.
Right. I mean, Inauguration Day technically is on January 20th, but I totally agree with your point.
Yeah, 20th.
The problem isn't so much that Donald Trump, whether he concedes or not, but what is genuinely a problem is the obstruction from the Trump administration in terms of a smooth and peaceful transition of power. We know that there isn't going to be this armed coup, but nonetheless, we still need these government agencies to cooperate, not because they're competent, not because they have any kind of unique skills that would not be present in a Biden-Harris administration, but because lives are on the line. Even Donald Trump's COVID task force has stated that they're not being able to cooperate with the Biden-Harris task force could lead to more carnage. Donald Trump sat there in his inauguration and he talked about American carnage, and he delivered on that. And that's what's happening right now. We might see another 150,000 deaths at the massive escalation that we're seeing of COVID infections. And we're not putting Biden-Harris in the best position to take over and tackle it. And the less that they have to prepare, the less involved they are right now, the more extreme the measures we might have to take come 2021. And I know we all want to get the hell up out the house. And so there is a real consequence to Donald Trump's rhetoric, because you have people like Emily Murphy in the GSA who won't sign transition papers. You have people like Mike Pompous, as Dr. Carr referred to him, who are holding back correspondence from foreign leaders. These are all things that put us behind the 8 ball. Luckily, we do have an administration that will be coming into power, like you said, no matter what, per the Constitution, that is competent, that is ready, that is able, that will listen to science, and that's been there and done that. So that gives me confidence, but we cannot let Trump off the hook for the obstruction, and I will say treason against the United States, because he is obstructing the will of the people. 76 million people and counting.
I mean, look, here's the deal. He's an ass. He was an ass before. He's an ass. We got elected. He's going to be an ass when he leaves. But the thing is this here. Again, we knew what he was going to do. He made that perfectly clear. So all he's doing is doing exactly what he said he was going to do. It's no surprise to me that Jack Nicklaus has no courage to say, it's time for you to go ahead and go, because they don't want him to go. Erica, they want the madness to continue. Mm-hmm. They want that. Okay. I mean, this is who they are. This is what they are all about. And so that's what the whole deal is. And I think what people, like yesterday, Erica, on the show, I talked about how I need progressives to stop going at each other. Because here's the deal. This is just real simple, okay? The Democratic House is not made up of all progressives. Mm-hmm. It's not made up of all centrists. It's not made up of all moderates or conservatives. No, the Democrats have a majority because they picked up some centrist districts. Mm-hmm. It's a fact, okay? So you got to figure out, how can I sit here and work with folks to get the legislation? The other folk, you can't work with them.
Right.
Because they're not going to operate rationally. Now finally Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa says, yes, Joe Biden should be getting national intelligence briefings. Now all of a sudden, Senator Lindsey Graham, who I'm sorry, as Rochelle Carey said, we ain't giving you a cookie because you now are saying that Joe Biden is the president. No. We ain't forgot what you said last week on Fox News, Lindsey. We haven't forgot that. But that's who you're dealing with. And when somebody shows you who they are, your deal should go, okay, got you. I'm good. Now I know how to deal with you. I think what has to happen right now is that the folks who support Biden Harris must be prepared for the reality, Erica, that Donald Trump and his minions are going to draw this out and give no assistance whatsoever until the absolute last second.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And this is all thanks to the increased number of white women that said that they wanted for white supremacy to continue, that 55%. Thanks be to God for the 90+% of Black women and the 80% of Black men that said that, no, this is not the direction that we can go in, because as we look at the COVID numbers, we're talking about 240 plus million Americans that are dead, to include a beautiful little Black girl, 5 years old, that died as a result of COVID. When we're also thinking about the still ongoing economic turmoil, we still do not have that CARES package that the House passed back in May of 2020 through the Senate. We also have here in the state of Georgia 2 important Senate elections that will be happening on January 5th, and a plethora of youth voters that will be engaging in the vote because they will be eligible to vote by January the 5th. We're thinking about all of these different things that we have going on, and not to be surprised that we have now people that are finding their cojones and trying to step to the plate to say, well, yeah, he does, in fact, President-elect Biden does need to receive his presidential daily briefings. Hell yeah, he needs to be receiving them, because the functioning illiterate person who is occupying the White House has not been reading them for over 4 years now. So there is this real exhaustion that the country is feeling, particularly when we're seeing that we have hundreds of thousands new COVID cases, when we're seeing people that are being hospitalized, ICUs at maximum capacity. So of course we do expect for the person who brought in the circus to leave with circus in tow. But I think that this is where people have to take stock and have to really own how being engaged in the vote is critically important. That, and also to remember that people that are not only on the federal level, but people that are on the state level, and I know we're going to get to this later in the show when we're talking about State Representative David Clark, who's pushing for more restrictive voting around wanting to call the Georgia State Legislature into session so that they can make sure that people can't be folks that, with the assumption that people are going to be moving to Georgia in a flurry because of the Senate elections that we have coming up in January. So people just need to remember these names like Lindsey Graham's, like State Georgia Representative David Clark of District 98, that these are the people in the midst of everything that we have going on in the country that still wanted to block and drag out what is a final election. We're just waiting for it to be certified. But these are the people who really continue to obstruct, along with the son of a Klansman. And don't forget those people. Remember those people when you're thinking about the state of Georgia, when these folks are up for election again in 2 more years. Think about that as we move into these different classes of Senate races, as Dr. Carr pointed out last week, that will be ongoing, thinking about not just 2020, but thinking about 2022, 2024, 2026 moving forward, because these are people that said that your life be damned, we want power.
And look, there are people, look, you have folks today, the White House, according to reports, they fired two DHS officials. Well, this is a statement that was put out today by the Department of Homeland Security. Jeff Bennett with NBC put this out. New statement on election security from DHS. The November 3rd election was the most secure in American history. There's no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. Here's what you have right here. You have people who are people of integrity. These are people, Greg, who are saying, I'm not getting caught up in that. These are people who are saying, I am career workers. You have these people, all these, the D state. There are people who are public servants. There are black people, white people, Latinos, Asian, Native Americans who say we serve no matter who is sitting in the Oval Office. These folks on the right, they want to assail all of these folks. They will rather, just like in the Civil War, they will rather burn down this whole thing in order to protect white supremacy.
And that's exactly what they will do. Reese and Erica have laid this out in terms of the consequence. This woman, Emily Murphy at GSA, once she turns in that letter of to affirm that the president and the vice president elect are indeed them, this is pursuant to the 1963 Presidential Transfer Act, that frees up $6.3 million to help them transition. But more importantly than that, in the office space, as we heard Reese lay out, it gives them access to the briefings. And as Erica said, everything from spending that CARES Act money to taking over Operation quote unquote warp speed, all that is triggered. The thing also with Pompeo at state, Mike Pompeo, see, there isn't a country when you have a white nationalist and a Christian extremist as well, I wouldn't even call him Christian as such, but who is now signaling to the world, we are going to throw chaos into this process. So anybody who wants to take a shot at the folks who will suffer, which were the people who are now maybe victims of a foreign attack, this is your chance. Remember when Al Gore conceded after one day, after the Supreme Court stopped the count in Bush versus Gore, immediately the GSA recognized Bush and they went into transfer mode. However, in the report of 9/11/2000, one of the things the commission that was investigating 9/11/2000 said, even that delay of a month while they were counting votes in Florida exacerbated the ability of foreign powers to begin to intervene to understand how they could pull off what eventually became 9/11. This is the time the country is the most vulnerable. Forget red and blue, forget Democrat, Republican, forget your ideology. Understand that if something blow up in a mall or a plane drop out the sky, you can look at this clown who's going to be somewhere running from the law, and you can look at every one of those white nationalists who don't give a damn about you, but has their eye already on the presidential primaries in the White Nationalist Party for 2024. This is the most vulnerable time. This is more than people cracking jokes about a fool who don't want to leave, who's going to be drug out kicking and screaming. This is literally an exposure of the fact, as you said, that they don't believe in anything like of America. And one other thing I'll say, I don't know how I feel or how you all feel about this idea of people resigning in protest. Like the person who was dealing with election integrity at the Department of Justice. We know that Bill Barr is an inexcusable clown, but when you leave the space, that's mission accomplished for them. So I'm not sure how I feel about it.
You talked about Georgia earlier and how Republicans, they want to go into special session and pass a law to impact the runoff on January 5th. And it was a Republican leader who said, no, we ain't doing that. He's like, we are not doing that. He said, what's going to happen is it's going to sit here and it's going to go to court. It's going to get prolonged. It's going to have no impact. No, we're not doing it. This is what people, and this is what I need our audience to understand. And the reason we're always trying to walk our people through history and present day is it operates the same way. Folks, if y'all actually read the book by Jack Bass on that Fifth Circuit, Unlikely Heroes, what you would discover in that book is, this is what they would do in Louisiana. They would pass a law against school integration. The lawyers would go right to the federal court and the judge would invalidate it. The next day, legislature would pass another law. They go right to court, the federal judge would invalidate it. This happened continuously. It happened in states all around the South. That's what we're seeing here. And recently, what I need our people to understand, and I have been yelling this, I'm actually working on a book deal about this right now. We better understand this white fear. We better understand that as long as Republicans control 31 state legislatures, as long as they control redistricting, as long as they control the Attorney General's office, as long as they control governor's mansions, as long as they control state Supreme Courts, you're going to see efforts to invalidate real voters across these states because they fear losing power and control. We had better be prepared. And I'm not talking about over the next 2 months dealing with Trump. No, this is a white American thing that we're seeing, and it's going to happen state after state after state after state, which is why the Georgia seats are so important. Because if Congress can pass a strong voter bill that actually makes the VRA, the Voting Rights Act, permanent, forget sunset provisions, and put other things in, you're able to overrule what's happening in these states.
Absolutely, Roland. And unfortunately, some of the states made gains in terms of the Republican control throughout this election cycle. You know, we did have record turnout on the Democratic side, but we also had record turnout on the Republican side. And people have to fill out that ballot up and down the ballot. Even John Ossoff down in Georgia got about 100,000 or more less votes than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So these are the kinds of things that really do hurt our cause. We have to keep the eye on the ball on local and state elections, every single one of them, every single time. Because if not, it makes the hurdle that we have to clear it that much harder. So I completely agree with you. This is so important that we really stay civically engaged. And I know that people are, already angling to what they're going to demand from the Biden-Harris administration, but we have 69 more days before they take over. In the meantime, we got to win this damn Georgia elections, and we have to keep our eye on the ball and keep the pressure on these Republicans, because what they're doing right now in terms of these lawsuits and these statements that they're making is not about overturning the results of the election. It's about a propaganda campaign to serve as a pretext for further voter suppression. They're going to have the control in, like you said, 30-something state houses for gerrymandering, for redistricting. That's why it's going to be important who Biden gets to put on the courts. If Mitch McConnell is the Senate Majority Leader, then I don't see how Biden and Harris get their judges. I don't see how they start to undo the damage from the 200 plus Trump-McConnell judges. And so we have to keep our eye on the ball. And I know people are probably tired of hearing about voting. They're probably tired of hearing about what their civic responsibility is, but we cannot let up now.
That's right.
This is, I've been saying, I said it twice, 2017, I said it this year, Erica, this means war. I'm not sure folks are fully prepared for this. One of the reasons why I've been so critical of this infighting among progressives and progressives and corporate Dems and establishment is, I'm like, do y'all understand what they're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Erica, they ain't dealing with infighting. They're dealing with consolidation.
Mm.
What they're doing, they're circling the wagons. You made the point. 53% of white women voted for Trump in 2016. It was 55% in this year. Okay, folks, don't play around with this. And I'm telling you, people need to understand, all of these people who are criticizing, the reality is the coalition that elected Joe Biden elected him. But that is not a coalition set in stone. Once you start going under the hood and start looking at the numbers, there are some serious problems there that when you look at in terms of how voters went in the Rio Grande area, Rio Grande Valley in Texas, how votes went in terms of with African Americans, with black men, black women, when it comes to, look, nobody expected a 5% drop of white men. That was supposed to be Trump's base. And so we need to understand that, look, they are about winning. They ain't about who's right.
Right.
They're not battling each other over, I think this is a better way forward. The Republicans are focused on winning. And when you win, you hold power. And when you hold power, you wield power. And when you wield power, then you're able to affect change. All I'm saying is, Democrats, you better figure out that deal and you better focus on winning.
Absolutely. And the way that you win is by investment, right? We have seen largely how grassroots organizations, Black Voters Matters, people have been working on the grounds for years. And that's why we've really seen significant outcomes, right? So the other thing that Democrats need to take a lesson from is actually investing in the South. That money has to go there, because no contest is unwinnable unless you compete in it. everything is you can win anything if you at least compete, if you enter into the race. So investing in people that are constantly showing up without any real do outs after the election is also important. Not only investment, but some of the civic education programs that we've seen highlighted on this show through Mr. Lee Saunders, through Acme, the Block program, I believe that's run by Angela. I don't recall her last name, but that is a year-long program where they have ambassadors, people who are actually from the community that are talking to people in the community in their own voice about things that are important, advising them about local and state, and then those congressional races as well. But they are actually folding in those voters. That's something that I do on my platform 3 days a week, the Savage Political Bite. But then in addition to that, when you're talking about that infighting, Roland, when I think about Republicans and how they really do major in chess, not checkers, when I think about people who are complaining about what should be done or what shouldn't be done, there's always room in the Republican Party for if there is really just one road, one way, one voice. Within the Democratic Party, we have a tent of voices, and all of those voices can be heard if there is an understanding that as we are all heard, we all push forward. But unless that is realized, unless that is something that is really taken to heart, unless people really do have an understanding of that, then they will kind of use the space that's taken up in the Democratic Party as a way to really kind of launch their own branding campaign, which is detrimental to the party, particularly to the base that continues to show up and show out. So to use the time to look at where it is that the Democrats can really make strong inroads, get in and start talking to Black men, and not just once in a while. Make that something that is done at least on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. Make sure that you are making inroads with Latinx communities, right? Finding out what their diverse needs are, making inroads with the Native American community, which has showed up and showed out in incredible ways. And then also with Black women. But those are things that have to be done. That is called investments. That is what the Democratic Party really needs to hone in on, because as we said on this show over and over again, the get out the vote, the 2 to 3 get out the vote efforts, that's thrown out of the window. And I think that we can count on people having a better understanding how elections really do have consequences that really do now have an appetite for engagement. And so as Reese talked to, as people start talking about the demands that they're going to make on the Biden-Harris campaign, I would even say pump the brakes on that. Look within your own communities. What can you be doing? What is it that you can engage and lean in further on? What are some commissions, some board of election commission seats that maybe are coming up for grabs that you can learn more about and get engaged in? The onus also is on the citizens. And so we have a responsibility ourselves to not just sit at the table and be prepared to eat, but to also find out, well, what is it that I can bring as well, so that when we all eat, we're all eating together.
Well, and that's where the collective comes in. One of the things that I've been engaged in this week is reaching out to other folks in Black media. We're going to reveal this really in depth on Monday, where I said, look, we don't have the resources to compete against the CNN, New York Times, and these networks. I said, but what does make sense is why we are not partnering and aligning with one another to actually make this thing possible, to make this thing real, to make it actually happen. Look, the Georgia runoff. Look, election day, January 5th. That's when it's taking place. Okay, you got till December 7th to register. Early in-person voting starts on December 14th. You're going to have mail-in balloting as well. And what should be happening is people should be coming together to say, how can we utilize our platforms to be able to come together and then be able to spread messaging across all these places to reach our people. See, that's what it's about. Folks, if you look at 2018 and you look at 2020, the work that folks like Black Voters Matter did, it mattered because they weren't focused on ego tripping. It was all, no, they were doing the hard work, going to communities, taking that bus, going around. In fact, they put this video here out. It's important because it shows you how, if you're operating in your space, just in your space, and if I got to go biblical, I'll use Nehemiah. Nehemiah said, we need to rebuild the wall. And he was distraught by that, and the king said, go back. And then when Nehemiah surveyed the wall, surveyed the land, he went to the people and then said, this is what we should do. The key part of the scripture is when the people said, let us rebuild.
Yes.
They didn't say, Nehemiah, you rebuild. They said, let us rebuild. And I think a lot of people are stuck because they don't know what their role is. They don't understand what their responsibility is. There are people who sat here and who were, oh man, you're gonna fail with this show, and you should go to mainstream. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna wait on them to call me. We're gonna create something. And so we took something that was an idea and went from 9.3 million views in the first month to 30 million views in the last couple of months. We did nearly 2 million views on Saturday alone. But the only way that happened is because we built it.
Right. That's
The
right.
only way that happened is because we actually worked. We actually, look, wide shot, Henry. Again, like I keep telling y'all, we didn't have this news desk when we first started. We had glass tables, tabletops, and chairs. And folks was like, man, I wish y'all get rid of them glass tabletops, but want your ass send some money, we'll replace it. Why am I saying that? Because you had to build it. And what we have to understand is that when it comes to African Americans in communities, we got to build this thing. Beto O'Rourke sent an email out today talking about what happened in Texas. He said canvassing must happen in Texas 365. You can't wait to 3 months before the election to start canvassing. He said the investment has to be made now in canvassing. And so here's this Black Voters Matter video of where they profiled a grocery store they ran into in Wilmington, North Carolina, who was doing their part on rebuilding the wall.
So the concept of this store, man, is just an empty building. We hadn't had a black-owned grocery store in this city, so I just took it upon myself, me and a friend of mine, to say let's do it, especially in this neighborhood, this area, bringing fresh vegetables and produce from the black farmers, and just provide different resources and kind of just like a gathering place for us. You know, we got a pool table, we got TVs, we got a bar, beer and wine, got a jukebox on the wall. So just something for the older people and just the whole community to come out, enjoy themselves, sit down, politic, and somewhere for us to buy groceries from instead of, you know, I hate to say it, but the big chains and the Arabs, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of those people come into our communities and take out and don't invest back in. So we're going to put back in. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, it's sad, you know, for us black folks. It's not the future for me no more. It's the future for the children. You better get out there and vote. That's the only thing I got to say. You better vote. Because it's very important. Our future depends on that.
It's building. It's Greg. What Stokely said. If you are not part of an organization, you can't build jack in our community. These lone wolves ain't gonna happen, and we gotta stop thinking what's that person. No. It has to be institutional. It has to be structure. Must be infrastructure. And there's somebody who's watching who is saying, yeah, okay, I hear you, but you ain't got to wait even for Black Voters Matter to roll through. If you're watching us right now, you can literally canvass your street. You ain't got to ask nobody. You don't have to ask anybody. You don't have to ask a member of Congress, a president, a governor, a mayor. You can say, you know what? I'm going to canvass my street. I'm going to go knock on the door of everybody on my street and say, is everybody in your house registered? And if not, we're going to make sure it happens.
Sure.
This ain't hard, Greg, but it requires putting in the work. Now, when I say it's not hard, doing it is not hard. But it requires you have to be willing to put in the work to make it happen.
Well, the only reason I reacted like that, Roland, is because when you showed us Black Voters Matter, and of course, Tosha Brown, you've had her on before anybody. The Democratic Party is in trouble in this regard, I think. And this won't be easy for some people watching to hear. See, the Republican Party has it easy because they're the party of white nationalism. And they're as corporate as anybody. They're the party of business. The Democratic Party is the party of business too. Certainly after Bill Clinton and them took over and the Democratic Leadership Committee, there's a difference between organizing and mobilizing. What the Democratic Party has done traditionally, in a way, having captured the black vote as if we had somewhere to go in this duopoly system, is emphasize mobilizing. They want to turn people out election time. There's a reason why Nancy Pelosi didn't come here. And there's a reason why Chuck Schumer kind of soft pedal, because they're soft white nationalists. And many of the people that you're showing, many of the grassroots people, these are not mobilized. They are organized. That's what Stony Carmichael is talking about, is organized. In other words, whether there's an election or not, we are bringing people together to discern what power we have here to transform our lives. And when the ballot is an issue, we use the ballot as a tool. But see, the problem that Democrats have now, and I'm speaking now about people like Jim Clyburn and Hakeem Jeffries and some of the others who have risen through the ranks in the Democratic Party, which, make no mistake about it, when we start talking about centrism, and it really isn't centrism, it's soft white nationalism in some ways. They see electoral politics very astutely, very pragmatically, but what they are not invested in, I'm talking about Pelosi and Schumer primarily, and these people crying on this call they had last week, Asperger and all them, Spanberger. What they are not recognizing is when you get somebody like Jayapal, for example, Congresswoman Jayapal, or Bernie Sanders, who is saying, look, we got beat, we don't like it, but we're going to shut up and go out here and get the vote out. And you see the Democratic platform reflect that. People who have taken the time to read the Biden-Harris plan see that you've incorporated some of that. Then after this moment, when we're at a critical moment, expanding the electorate by organizing, not mobilizing, is now going to come into direct conflict with those who just want our vote. Because if Pelosi and Schumer had been serious, Mike Espy would be a senator from Mississippi. But see, they just want black people to come out and vote. And so finally, I'll say this, with all due respect to Congressman Clyburn, of course, most respect. This shooting war started on the Sunday shows last weekend, and Schumer and Pelosi and them started this shooting war. Now, I'm not one who is inclined to fall in line with people who haven't proven that they'll do anything other than chase them phantom white across the aisle hard white nationalists every time they win an election. The Democratic Party got to wake up to the fact that the people they need to be looking to are the people they have always ignored, and they need to transform the South and get out of the way of those people, because if you lose them this time, you're going to lose the next presidential election, and we're going to get somebody who come back around and make Donald Trump look like the good old days. Be every bit as racist as Trump with a smoother delivery. And these people are not going to come out again if you sell them out this time. I'm sorry, Roland.
Right. No, you're right. And see, Reese, here's what I'm arguing. Actually, it's not about the Democratic Party.
Right.
Because what I'm arguing is, and granted, you take the city of Houston. Yeah, you can say elections, they're really D versus R, but they're actually nonpartisan. You don't run as a Democrat. You don't run as a Republican, okay, officially on the ballot. Now, you could say Sylvester Turner, he's a Democrat, and his opposition was a Republican, Tony Busby, who ran. But bottom line is, you don't run as a DNR. What I am arguing to our people is what we're laying out. What I'm talking about this notion of, I keep saying, a third Reconstruction. Because this show was not launched to be a vehicle for Democrats or Republicans. Why? Mm-hmm. I got Republicans on here. I'm not dumb. I know I can look at Biden, Trump, and go, hell, which one is better for black people? That ain't hard. And I can go through those issues. But the thing is, and I said this today to some people go to the live stream we did with the American Heart Association. I said it's very simple. If we are not about taking our institutions and leveraging our institutional power, then we're going to the table as individuals with no army to back up. Mm-hmm. But so what I'm saying is, as we're sitting here, we can sit here and say, all right, Georgia, Warnock, OSOF. All right, organize and mobilize, because organize comes before mobilize.
Right.
Organize and mobilize to put them in, but then if you're successful, then you come back and say, you do know we still are organized, which means that we want these things to happen, because if they don't, we now are going to mobilize to make this happen. I'm arguing, unless you do the organizing part, you can't mobilize a damn thing.
I totally agree, Roland, and that's where it's that's where people say that voting is not the silver bullet at all whatsoever. But to Dr. Carr's point, I just want to add, though, Dr. Carr, and I'm sure you would agree with me, there's a white nationalist and white supremacy problem on the progressive side as well.
Oh, yeah.
So that is why I do
yeah.
not subscribe to any particular label, because what I've seen, particularly
Absolutely.
as a Kamala Harris supporter, is how these litmus tests go out the window when it comes to a Black person that's threatening the white supremacy within the progressive movement. I, for one, am a person who supported Medicare for all. I, for one, am a person who supported a lot of the ideological things that are being pushed by progressives. But then when I see progressives weaponizing that label against Black people that have been working for my best interests so that they can prop up, they are the ones that I've seen, not all, but they're the ones that I've seen that are the ones that are accepted as progressive, like Andrew Yang, who says, well, we need to focus more on Ohio and Iowa, which he's code for white working class. They're the ones that I've seen that have put an emphasis on class, not racism. And when I talk to them about Black maternal mortality, they say, well, Medicare for all will solve that. It's not about access to healthcare. That's not the only thing that drives Black maternal mortality. It's about racism. And so what I want to have happen in this conversation, if we're going to have the conversation about labels, whatever, as far as I'm concerned, these labels are mostly created by white people to yield those labels against particularly Black people, because white people don't have to rise to the level of proving that they're progressive or whatever the hell label you want to throw out there. So what I want to say is we have a white supremacy problem within the Democratic Party. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. So let's address it when it comes to everybody involved. When the Justice Dems, for instance, were founded by people who are white supremacists, people who throw around the N-words, one person supports bestiality. You know, you can go look up their Twitter accounts and find this information. Those are not my allies. So I'm just saying, you know, I agree with Roland. Maybe now is not the time to get into a pig fight, but if we're going to have the pig fight, then I'm going to come to the table and I'm going to say, let's talk about what everybody is talking about.
Oh, yes. No. See, here's the deal. Right.
I agree with you.
No, you're absolutely right. I want the fight.
One last thing I want to say, though, is the progressives have now cloaked themselves under Blackness. All of a sudden, the progressives, to me, from what I've seen, all of a sudden, they're all super pro-Black, and we're the Black people are the base, when they done shitted on Black people for as far as I can remember. So all I'm saying is, let's just keep it real. If we want to have an ideological fight, let's have an ideological fight, but let's be honest about who's pushing what ideology, and don't just exclude the people are the handful of Black people, like, you know, Ayanna Pressley or Ileana Omar, or the people of color like Rashida Tlaib that you want, okay, you can have a seat at the table in AOC, but then you shit on everybody else who's Black. That's what I have a problem with. So that's all that I want to say about when we talk about progressives.
Right.
I don't have a problem with progressives, but let's just keep it real all the way around.
And here's the deal. We're in
full agreement.
Right. And my deal is
Cori Bush, one of those people you talking about. In other words, that's a hard thing for me to. Cori Bush would say what you're saying to those racist white progressives. I'm with you 100% on that. This is race first. No question about it.
And the thing is here, Erica, what I'm arguing, we're going to have the battle. But bottom line, this is very simple. You can talk all day about we want this and we want this and we're going to demand this from Biden and we're going to demand this from Harris. If your ass ain't got the Senate, none of that will be even on the table. None. It's going to be like the last 4 years. Mitch McConnell will be like, y'all pass whatever y'all want to pass. I ain't even paying attention to y'all. That's going to be reality. And so the problem to me is you have to me, folk got to know when to argue. It's like this here. If me and my wife want to get into an argument, is it a really good time to get into an argument if I got somebody pointing a gun at me? No, we can deal with this later. Right now, we got to get out of this situation right here. See, some folk want to have the argument right then. I'm like, y'all, this ain't when we had an argument. Because again, we can have the argument. And guess what? Let's say Warnock wins, Ossoff loses. It's 51-49. What's going to happen about the George Floyd Act? Nothing. What's going to happen about Voting Rights Act? Nothing. All y'all who thought Ice Cube got $500 billion from Trump, ain't none of that going to happen. Okay, Biden's Lift Every Voice plan, ain't none of that going to happen. Commitments to HBCUs, none of that going to happen. We can just go down the line. So, what folk want to do? Y'all want to swing or you want to win? Because, see, I'm trying to win. Now, after we win, we can throw down behind closed doors. We can swing behind closed doors. I can call you full of shit. I can cuss you out. I can talk about you like a dog. But I'm trying to win. Because when you win, you have power. And when you have power, you get to wield power. Democrats had power under the first 2 years of Obama, and they squandered it. Because they only focused on the Affordable Care Act. That what they should have done is, they should have said, as long as we got power, we're going to do it right now. And if we lose it in 2 years, we got as much as we could. That's all I'm saying, Erica. We better sit here and understand how serious this is. This is about controlling the agenda with power.
Absolutely. This is all about a power grab. I think it makes it a little bit more difficult when you have folks like Matt Dow that are throwing gasoline on the fire, right? This is something that Black people have known for quite some time, that this election and many elections to come and many elections before that were literally about life and death. But when you have people that are constantly goading you via social media and erasing you, which is something that we are very much so accustomed to in this country as Black Americans, that begins to get a bit old, particularly when you look at all of the efforts that happen through grassroots organizations and organizers to get people to the polls during a pandemic. So in full agreement and definitely hear that, but there has to be some accountability and responsibility for people who perch at the seat of whiteness. And let's also include those folks that are white adjacent, because we have white Hispanics, people who acquiesce to whiteness. So all of those folks as well, we can't not, consider that as well, that they have to come to a better understanding that they actually need to have a better approach, which is making sure that they are really coalescing around people who have been in this country, who understand and really are the bellwethers for what this country what's really happening in this country, to make sure that there is a lifting up, to make sure that there is really a support. And that support is just beyond dollars. That support also looks like feet on the ground. That support also looks like what we've been talking about, engaging in the civic education year round, and not just being on the 6-7 figure consultancy side, collecting money for doing the work that Black folks are constantly doing unpaid. So I think when we kind of look at it like that, then that really does kind of make sense around why people are just really generally tired of always really being talked down to, being talked around, hearing coded language when we're in this period of just real exhaustion. Yeah.
Well, first of all, we're dealing with that with coronavirus, and we'll discuss that next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We'll be back in a moment.
America is a complicated story of people building a more perfect union. And if you don't think there's been any change, you should sit down with Andrew Young. You should sit down from some of the folks in that generation who know the distance we've come. And as we continue to push hard, change comes. The other side knows your power. The other side knows your voice. That's why they're engaged in voter suppression. If you weren't so powerful, they wouldn't be trying so hard to stop you from voting. And so you ought to stand up in this defining moment in American history and win the future for all of our children.
Raphael Warnock grew up in a house full of brothers and sisters. His parents taught him the value of hard work, like me.
Like me, he was first in his family to graduate from college and went on to earn a PhD.
He thinks insurance companies should not be allowed to discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions, like me.
Like me, Reverend Warnock knows that both parties in Washington could use some moral leadership.
I'm Raphael Warnock, and I approve this message because it's time we had a senator who put Georgians first, like me.
I'm John Ossoff, and too many are struggling to afford prescriptions. One change in the law would make a huge difference. See, Medicare is America's biggest buyer of prescriptions, but the drug companies bought off Congress, and they made it illegal for Medicare to negotiate lower prices. It's straight up corruption. Fighting corruption is my job. I approve this message because I'm not taking donations from corporate PACs, and I won't let the drug companies rip us off anymore.
There are so many things that have happened that if we don't see them for what they are, this is just going to continue to, get out of control. If I don't actually say, hey, I'm going to commit to registering 10 people to vote.
Right.
And that's the thing, I think, is we get so hung up on the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
The big picture matters, but it only matters when we all do small things.
Right.
That's how it happens. It's not, hey, let's just post on Twitter and post on Instagram, because yes, social media is huge, we know it, but we have to actually get out there and walk the walk.
All right, folks, coronavirus continues to explode all across the country. We have about 10.5 million cases nationwide. Texas alone has 1.2 million cases. California, 995,000 cases. The Trump administration really doing nothing. We're seeing, of course, new restrictions in New York City, in Chicago, and you name it. It is unbelievable. We're seeing record hospitalizations as well, surpassed 1 million now new confirmed cases in just the first 10 days of November. This new wave appears to be bigger than the spring and summer surges, and with the holidays approaching, medical experts are concerned that we haven't seen the worst of it. Joining us now is Dr. Carissa Colbreth, Medical Director for Infectious Disease Diagnostics at Tricor Reference Laboratories in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Dr. Colbreth, glad to have you on the show. This is Dr. Fauci and others kept warning us that this was going to happen, that we were going to see another explosion of cases take place in fall, winter of 2020, and we're here.
We are here. We are here. And I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that we did not have all of the early preparedness things in place that were recommended. Mask mandates had been recommended, and some states proceeded with those. Other states did not. And without really having a great consolidated national message around how we can prevent the virus, we end up here where the science and medicine had predicted we would be had we not taken all of these other things into account. So now we are approaching a fall and a winter season that is going to be devastating if we don't start to put intensive measures in place right now. We can't wait, and those measures have to be in place with wide use of masking, having really good social distancing practices. This is really on each and every one of us to take on our own personal responsibility in the absence of great leadership from the highest levels.
And so, and obviously, we heard the news about the vaccine, but just on Tuesday, the CDC came out and said, my God, wear masks to protect yourself and protect others. But I'll be honest with you, Doc, it's the most unbelievable, crazy thing. When I was in Detroit, we were covering, interviewing Senator Gary Peters there. It was a Halloween I think the next night or something along those lines. And, there was this place there, there was some restaurant club. I mean, it was jam-packed. I'm talking about virtually no mask on. These folks were on top of one another. It was as if there's nothing happening in the world. Yo, we good. We just going. And hell, the White House, the 14th aide of Trump, Corey Lewandowski, he now has it. Other folks have it. They were passing that thing around at the White House on election night like it was a blunt.
Listen, we are tired of coronavirus, but coronavirus is not tired of us. And people want to take a day off. They want to take a day off from wearing a mask. They want to take a day off for social distancing, whether it was Halloween, a celebration, watch party, or your birthday. Coronavirus is not taking a day off. And I think that's what we have to be reminded of. There's no timeout for a pandemic. And so every single second of every single day, we have to imagine that the people that we are in contact with may have the virus. I saw somebody ask the question, if you knew somebody in the room that you were in, if you knew they had coronavirus, how would you behave? And that's how we have to walk into every single room, because it's going to impact us. It's going to impact our family. I was looking at some data today from the CDC, and it was absolutely devastating to see that the highest numbers of cases and deaths in the ages between 18 and 49 were in African Americans and Latinos. The highest numbers of cases and deaths in the ages 18 all the way up to 49 in African Americans and Latinos. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of our communities, especially as we're entering into these colder months and into our holiday seasons. Things will look differently, but they'll look different this year so that we can get back to a better sense of normal next year. But coronavirus isn't taking a break.
So, Doc, the perfect example. So we've got 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today is Thanksgiving, okay? And folks are making decisions. Would you tell families, black people listening, look, my nephew Chris is 13 years old today. My brother Reginald is 53 years old tomorrow. My birthday is Saturday. I'm 52 on Saturday. My mom's birthday is November 30th. We've got a very large family. But what is your advice to families who are saying, man, I don't care about all of this. We haven't seen each other. We haven't gotten together. We're going to get together for Thanksgiving, have parties or whatever. What would you say to them?
Listen, this is going to be the hardest decisions that anybody has had to make. Everybody has a similar story, right? I haven't seen my sister in months since earlier this year, I think was the last time I saw her. We are all going to have to make hard decisions. And if we could trust that everybody would put their masks on and everybody would have a quiet Thanksgiving, maybe we wouldn't have as much trouble. But we know that once we start to get together, those dominoes are going to come out, the spades are going to come out, we're going to start to get loud, the football game will be on. It's going to put us in risky situations. And the decisions we make for this Thanksgiving will ensure that we'll be with our families for next Thanksgiving. The gatherings will have to be smaller than they have been before, but we've got to find ways to make them work. If you want to see your family next year, you might have to make some sacrifices this year.
So what you're saying is, unless you have a big ass house where you can have real social distancing, don't be having to get-togethers.
We can't have everybody. It's not going to be the same year. And really, honestly, unless some places, if you're someplace that gets cold, that may not work either. Outdoors is always best. If people are going to be together, the reality is the households are going to have to celebrate within households. It may be smaller, much smaller gatherings than we're used to, but it's about preserving our families and preserving our elders. Though they're the ones that are at the highest risk. We know we have many more stories that we need to hear and recipes that we need to learn from our elders. We need to make sure that we take care of them this Thanksgiving, so we can see them also next Thanksgiving.
Okay, so I got another idea, and I'm gonna take a question from each one of our panelists here. So, okay, how about this here? All right, I'm just sort of throwing something out there. So, what if there's a family gathering, and you require everybody to do COVID testing? So let's just say that. Let's just say, okay, and let's say everybody comes back negative. All right. Can you still have a family gathering? But again, you're controlling can't nobody else come. So it's just your family. Because I'm serious. There's some people out there who are trying to do that, who are thinking about trying to do these events. I'm just trying to give people some understanding of what they need to be thinking about before they just run out there and do something. And so, under what conditions, you're not telling them to do this, but under what would you advise if they are hell bent on getting together? What is your advice for them on how to make that safe?
Listen, there's nothing that I can say that would make it a 100% safe
Right,
family
not
gathering,
100% safe,
right?
but
That
just
that take
safe.
it out.
I ain't
Just
say
say. I'm
foolproof.
not saying, but I'm saying.
I ain't say there's some giant condom you gonna wrap on top of the house and nothing getting into. Hell, a condom ain't 100% proof. But the bottom line is, again, if there are people out there who are saying, "Man, our family getting together," what would you tell them they should be doing to take precautions?
So if people are intent and they're going to do it regardless, listen, you would have to self quarantine, self isolate for at least, so starting today, we've got 2 weeks, right? So starting today, you would have to isolate yourself from others, right? And self isolate, you make your last grocery store run for 2 weeks, you get everything that you need,
For
you're
two
not going
weeks?
out. You at least 10 days. Get yourself together because you need to self isolate. You would need to quarantine so that you make sure that you don't have any added exposures. But really, there's no safeguard. Some people may say they want to go out and do a test. The test will only tell you what your status is the day of that test. So look, let's take it back to the
So
concept.
that means if I fly in, that there goes your quarantine.
I'm sorry, say it again.
That means that if I started quarantine today, but hell, if I'm flying back home, there goes my quarantine.
It's gone. Quarantine is gone. Right? You get on the airplane, you're getting exposed. Listen, if you take a test, even if you were to take a test today and it was negative today, that only tells you about your status today, right now. If you go out into public tomorrow, that can change your status. This is rough, and this is hard for me. This is hard for everybody. I wish we were in a different position, and we could have been in a different position, but we're not. And so now the risks are very, very high for our entire community. We're talking about people dying. We're talking about higher death rates in rural communities. We know that many of us have moved out into more suburban areas. And what we're seeing is that if we were to go back into our rural communities and kind of go back to where the family is, we're seeing higher cases and higher death rates right now in rural areas. These are areas that don't have enough hospitals. They don't have enough doctors. So we would be putting added stress on the system if we're introducing more potential exposures, more potential contacts. These are tough times. And there's measures that could have been taken before. Unfortunately, they were not taken. So anybody who has a large family gathering, there is a risk that you are taking on, and you need to think about whether or not that risk is really worth it.
Questions? Erica, you first.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Colbert, for your work and everything that you are doing. Just looking at the COVID tracker project through the Atlantic, and it looks like 1 in 378 Americans have COVID right now. What are you looking at, though? What do those numbers look like probably after Thanksgiving, particularly if the CDC guidelines are people should not gather more than 6 people if people are going to do any type of gathering for Thanksgiving? Just kind of looking ahead with people that probably won't go by those guidelines and that will gather, just to kind of put it in context so people can really sit with those numbers.
Right. Those numbers, if we continue to gather, those numbers will only go up. And what that means is that as the cases go up, the hospitalizations go up and the deaths go up. And those are things that we can't afford. And like I mentioned, I need people to understand this is not just something that only the elderly are dealing with. Within our communities, we have the highest death rates from the ages 18 to 49. So that means your college students, your young parents, all of these people in our communities are dying at higher rates than their white counterparts. So the numbers will only go up. We'll start to see positivity rates go up. It's not a factor of testing. If we tested more people and the numbers were the same, then the positivity rate would go down. It's basic math. As more people become infected, we have to test more people. And so it will be very dire for the country, but for our community specifically, if we don't take precautions this holiday season.
Reese?
Hi, Dr. Colbreth. My question for you is I've seen a lot of new developments. It seems like we don't keep up in terms of what's mainstream knowledge about what things that we find out about COVID. I'm now seeing that I've seen different reporting that people should be wearing surgical masks and not cloth masks. I've also seen reporting that people should not be wearing the masks that have the little vent in them. I've also seen reporting that face shields without masks are not as effective. Can you just give us a recommendation in terms of order of minimum to maximum protection that you think is available out there? For instance, surgical mask versus surgical mask and a shield. I would just like some clarification on that.
Sure, absolutely. I think that's a great question because the information has been evolving. And so, one of the challenges with this is the virus is brand new. So we're all learning together. Surgical mask or a mask with at least 3 layers of protection in it is the most appropriate. Many of us with the cloth mask, there is a place where you can put a filter. There's a little pocket in the cloth mask. I bet most people have not put a filter in that little pocket. So if you have a cloth mask and there's a little pocket in there, the intent is that you put a filter in there, and that will help to filter out some of the viral particles. So a surgical mask or a cloth mask with at least 3 layers would be best. You are correct that the face shield, if it's used without a mask, it really does not have as much benefit. It doesn't have as much value. If you're using the face shield, that's really just protecting your eyes and that kind of mucosal layer around your eyes from being a potential source of being infected. If you are traveling, if you're flying, if you're going to be out in public, you can add a face shield, but a face shield should not be a replacement. There's not a whole lot of very good solid data about the risk or benefit of those masks that have the vents, just because there's different formulations. I think we have to go back to if it's a cloth mask, it needs to be a mask with 3 layers. And then they've also been reporting that the neck gaiters, the ones that go up from your neck by themselves are not sufficient. The other thing about masks is I've had people ask me about using an N95 mask and using that for traveling or if they're out in public. An N95 mask certainly is the gold standard for mask protection, but an N95 mask is incredibly difficult to wear for a long time. So anybody who has any underlying health problems, any breathing problems, and if you plan to be very active while you are out, wearing an N95 mask just may not be good for you. So you just may not need to do that. And we want to preserve those N95 masks for our healthcare workers. So stick with a surgical mask or a cloth mask with 3 layers of protection. You need to use this mask anytime you are out with people who are not within your family gathering. And also, I know we want to take off our masks to take our pictures, take our selfies. We need to keep our masks on. Any exposure without a mask is a potential exposure. And if you knew the person next to you had coronavirus, would the selfie be worth it? Maybe not. Keep the mask on. There's plenty of cute, nice-looking masks. Wear those when you need to take your photos.
Greg.
Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Dr. Colbert. I add my thanks as well. We all have fatigue, obviously, quarantine fatigue, and it seems like that your colleagues who were the frontline folk in the hospitals have really begun to affect treatment regimes, and so where we were in the spring, March, April, May, and where we are now, even as we see this skyrocketing of cases. What's your sense of the potential severity of the cases? Seems like the death rate has gone down some. And is that impacting folks' decisions to perhaps get a little lax fatigue? And I guess that's more than one. Well, I have one final question. I guess is would you just tell everybody to stay at home Thanksgiving? Because I'm not going anywhere. I'm just telling you now. But please go ahead.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I hope people can hear me say and hear my heart. We all want to be together, and we are all tired. But please, please stay home. Find a way to stay home. And you know that your family gets on your nerves anyway sometimes. So stay home if you can, and find a good way to do that. But you know what? Our hope this whole time has been that there would be therapeutics that would come out that would help with treatment, that would help with therapy, and we are starting to see that. We're starting to see better treatments. Unfortunately, the system was sidebarred a little bit with having to confirm that unproven tests and treatments were not good. So they had to disprove what they already knew with stuff that was unproven but was being touted in the media. But now we are laser focused on finding appropriate treatments that is enabling people to survive. The challenge is until we have something that truly, there's not a cure that's a gold star, like a miracle, it's going to turn around. These are treatments that take time, that have to be given in general earlier on in disease, and this disease just ravages the body when it takes hold. And so we are able to allow people and help to support people who are in the hospital and who are ill, but they're still in the hospital for a long time. In addition to that, there are long-term effects that we are now starting to understand after people have recovered. So even after a successful recovery, we're seeing cases where people have extended courses of shortness of breath, extended brain fog where they can't quite get their thoughts together. We are just understanding what these long-term effects are. So even if there's better treatments, I'm hearing people say, well, I can get COVID, but now I'll recover. We still are understanding and learning about these long-term effects. It is not worth it. We've got to stay the course until we have a vaccine that's safe and effective, that's widely distributed, and we can get this virus under control again.
All right. Cobra, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Great advice there. All right, folks. Got to go to a break. We come back. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty of Ohio joins us on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
If your vote didn't matter, you wouldn't have so many people trying so hard to stop you from voting. There is some value there. But even when you talk about that people are not paying attention to your issues, I can't pay attention to your issues if I don't even know you there. And the only reason people are going to know you there is when you show up to the polls and vote. That's when that power manifests itself. But as long as you stay home, as long as you're making excuses, then guess what? You will always experience these issues that we're experiencing today. And another thing, don't get caught up in the candidates, right? There's no such thing as a perfect candidate, but you should be going to vote for the most important person, and that is you and the one you love. You talk about you'll fight for the one you love. You're willing to die for the one you love. You need to ask yourself, are you willing to vote for the one you love? Because if you don't, there's going to be somebody's neck on yours pretty soon.
From the day we started this campaign, we made it a priority to talk to Georgians wherever you live.
Representative Warnock, so good to see you again.
Thank you so much for doing this. So excited about your campaign.
Georgia needs a senator who will stand up for health care, who will stand up for Medicare, who will stand up for our children. We need leaders who will not forget who sent them there in the first place.
I think he'll stand up for me. We already voted for you. I think he'll stand up for everybody in Georgia.
Augusta, Savannah, Valdosta, Columbus. They may be miles apart on a map, but the challenges we face are quite the same.
We're completely behind you.
Thank you so much for running.
It's not about him. It's all about the people.
If you elect me the next United States Senator from the state of Georgia, your agenda will be my agenda.
Raphael Warnock will practice what he preaches. We're not getting that now.
I'm Raphael Warnock, and I approve this message.
Hey, well, I'm going to work hard for you, all right?
I'm John Ossoff, and the path to recovery is clear. First, we listen to medical experts to control this virus. Then we shore up our economy with stronger support for small businesses and tax relief for working families. And it's time for a historic infrastructure plan to get people back to work and invest in our future. We need leaders who bring us together to get this done. And that's why I approve this message.
I've always voted because my mama made me to. She would make me sit and watch the different speeches that they would have throughout the time. And then I assume as a kid, I would go in and out of, what is this and why, da-da-da-da kind of thing. And then as I got older, she wanted to make sure that my vote counted. So it was like, come on. And it was like, okay. But it wasn't until Bill Clinton got into office and really, until Obama got into office, till I really started being more educated about the process and how it helps and how it works and how my voice is really heard through my vote. Because he actually tackled social media and used that to get to us in a way that spoke. He spoke our language. And it wasn't just and only because he was a black man running for president, but I remember hearing his speeches and understanding what he was saying. And it wasn't foreign to me, and I didn't have to break it down or look in the dictionary or feel ignorant because I didn't know what he was saying. Yeah, maybe some of the words was kind of too big, but overall, I was like, I get the message here. I understand here.
Hi, this is Essence Atkins.
Hey, I'm Deion Cole from Blackish.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
All right, folks. Ohio Congresswoman Joyce Beatty has formally announced her candidacy for the Congressional Black Caucus chair. While some question what the CBC really does, Representative Beatty says she wants to build on the success that they've already had. She joins us now on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Congresswoman, how you doing?
I'm fine, Roland. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
All right. One of the things that we have talked about, and it is a part of the deal, and you actually addressed that in your statement when you're announcing, and I have said this for years. When I say for years, I can go back 2 decades. That I think I hear CBC members say all the things that we're doing, and they really get upset when people question what they're doing. And I keep saying, but if nobody knows, if no one knows what the CBC Foundation does, and the CBC Institute does, and the CBC PAC does, and the CBC itself, then, look, it's a messaging issue.
Well, I can tell you one of the things that we're going to do when you've heard me say that I'm going to build on the past successes, it doesn't stop there. And you're right. If we don't tell the American people and our communities in particular what our message is, then they don't know. So we're going to be about building partnerships. We're going to go old school and new school. We're going to be very active on social media. We're going to be calling on people like you, but we're going to form partnerships. We learned a lot during this last campaign when Black folks figured out what they had to lose, something that Trump had said to the Congressional Black Caucus, and that's when we laid out our plan to give back to him. We're going to take that same plan. We're going to take the Jobs and Justice Act. We're going to take the Voting Rights Act. We're going to talk about health care. I serve on the Financial Services Committee and also the Joint Economic. We know if we don't come together and if we don't build a strong people's base, economic base, then we can't deal with COVID-19 and how disproportionately Black folks are affected. So we're going to put our show on the road. We're going to use the historically Black colleges and universities, the Divine Nine, the Boulay. We're going to reach out to people in general and put everybody on one team so we can carry that message. We can't do it alone. Now, the good thing is we will be the largest caucus within our caucus. And so that will be very helpful because we will be able as a unity to stop just about anything. And that's another reason that I'm excited that I am running, and hopefully I'm running and planning to secure the votes of my colleagues.
It's very interesting because, people make all these comments, and I see it all the time on our message boards. I hear I'm traveling the country. Folks say, oh, the Black Caucus, they care more about LGBT and immigrants. They don't care about Black people. That ain't what their concern is. What would you say to that person if they're watching who actually says that and believes that?
Well, I would say to them that they need to look at our jobs and justice bill. I think they need to look at the messages that we've been sending out. We did an African American summit. We brought some of the best Black minds and individuals to our conference, and we're going to be about those issues. And I would say to them, we have an open door. I would say, reach out to us. Tell us what you think our platform should look like. I'm not going to be sensitive to the issues. Now, we are not perfect, but I can tell you our first concerns, because we do have a mission, we do have a blueprint, and that blueprint starts with Black folks. It starts with the economy and healthcare and the criminal justice reform. It was Black members on the Judiciary Committee that wrote the First Step Act. When you look at what we've done for little Black boys and girls, whether they're homeless or whether they're with their parents, those bills have come out of the Congressional Black Caucus. Now, where I think you're right, Roland, is we probably need to do a better job on messaging. But we work so hard and we take things back to our individual districts. So maybe we need to do a better collective effort. But I would assure them that our goals and our objectives are certainly in line with our mission, and that's being the conscience of the Congress for Black folks in our community.
One of the things that folks also are looking at, obviously, is the Biden-Harris administration. And so what are you and others are doing to ensure there's going to be major Black representation on the advanced transition team, but also when we talk about cabinet and high-level positions, such as chief of staff, legislative director, and those positions?
I lost the last part of your
Just
question, Roland,
and that is
if we're talking about, I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? All right. Hold on, so guys. Let me know we get that audio straight, so the Congresswoman can hear me, please. Now you got me. Okay. All right. Yeah. Not sure what happened there, but the question dealing with the issue of transition team, cabinet, high level positions. What are you and others doing right now? Not waiting, but right now, making it clear to Biden and Harris you want to see those folks.
Well, I can tell you what we're doing right now. We're very fortunate. Today, we had our Congressional Black Caucus virtual meeting. We have a member of the Congressional Black Caucus who's on our executive team. He did our census work, and that's Congressman Stephen Horsford. We have our own Congressional Black Caucus transition leadership. We also are very fortunate on the inside as the co-chairs. We have two of our Congressional Black Caucus members, Congressman Cedric Richmond and Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester, who are intimately involved. We have direct dialogue with them. I can also tell you that I am fully engaged in the transition process. There are weekly meetings for us. I don't think it's a mistake when we look at the appointments that have already been talked about or made. I think when you look at COVID-19 and the task force that President-elect Biden has put forward, to have Nunez Smith, a bad sister, a Black woman who is leading up the task force where Black folks are disproportionately affected with COVID-19 and from dying from it. So I think that's a first good step, keeping us alive, and to have a sister in that place. There are a whole host of lists that are coming out. And as we all heard President-elect Biden say to the nation that Black folks had delivered for him, had his back, and he will have our backs, I can assure you we will not be delinquent or shy about what we will say to him. And you have to also remember, we have one of our own on the inside with Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. She is an active member of the Congressional Black Caucus. So we feel that we are well positioned, and we are putting a list together. I can tell you that there are Black folks who serve on the inside transition team who are leading up many of the components, and they have reached out asking us for resumes, asking us our advice, and he's going to have to work with the Congressional Black Caucus. We will have 60 members. We know we're watching Warnock race in Georgia very closely. He's still up. He would be a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. So as our numbers grow, you're going to see a lot more from us.
One of the things that when we talk about accountability. My panel, you're going to ask questions next. Again, the average person has no clue. People look at, oh, how many bills you sponsored, not realizing that literally adding one line or taking one line out of a bill could have the impact of several $billions. And so I think part of that also is, let's just be honest, most folks have no idea what the hell a member of Congress does.
That's very true until they need us or they get in trouble. And, the work we do goes all over the map. People call us from everything from they got stuck in a foreign country and their passport, they lost it. They call us about monies for their communities. They call us about getting people out of jail. They call us, and some call us, they don't know it's legislation or what we're writing, but they ask for help or they have ideas. When you think about the issues that hit us at home, and that's money, and that's food, and that's housing, and that's our criminal justice system, we have people who ask us all the time about things related to reforming our criminal justice system. We hear them and we put them in play. Remember, it was Black folks that wrote that First Step Act. Now, it's the majority folks and this president that's in office that tried to take credit for it. So there are a lot of things that we do. Look at the Affordable Care Act. Far from perfect, but it was the Black folks that fought the hardest to keep it in place because we know we're the folks who need it the most. When you talk about pre-existing condition, I don't know a Black person that doesn't have a pre-existing condition. And I certainly know if you have a child that's 26 years of age or under and they can stay on your insurance if you're working, it costs a lot less than if they don't have insurance or if they have to get it themselves. So there are a lot of things we are doing. And I think you're right. I have a bill now. I don't talk about bill numbers. I can't even remember all the bill numbers. But when I put a clarion call out to say that Trump wanted to stop all diversity and inclusion training, he didn't want Black people to be trained. He didn't want majority companies and the federal government to train us. So that way, those who want to open up to hiring people who look like me and you wouldn't do it anymore. People understood that when I said he tried to stop diversity and inclusion training for Black folks. The letters start coming in. Not-for-profit organizations, corporate America, are writing letters to me in support of that. So I think we have to package things for everybody. Some people like legislation and they listen to your show and they read the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and other people are on the radio or they're in the barber shop. So we have to tailor it just like we did in this election. We tailored it for Black folks to get out to vote in a fashion that they could understand it. So I think I'm going to borrow from that if I'm successful.
Questions from my panelists. Let's see. I'll start with you, Reese.
Hi, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. I am so encouraged by everything that you've mentioned in this interview. Particularly, you're talking about packaging things because a lot of people really want this information to fall under their lap. And I believe, as you said, the Congressional Black Caucus is the conscience of the Congress. Can you, for the people out there that really don't understand the level that the CBC has contributed to the advancement of Black people in our society in general, can you just name one or two particular accomplishments that really the CBC doesn't tend to get credit for? I know you've talked about the First Step Act. Medicare for All, for instance, originated with Congressman John Conyers, who was the first person to introduce that. But I think a lot of people truly underestimate the level that you all have contributed to our society. And it would be nice to have one or two talking points to take to people when they do question, what has the CBC ever done for Black people?
Well, thank you so much. And you mentioned a few, but let me also share this. When we hear about housing and how important housing is to us, whether that's public housing, Section 8, whether that's home ownership or whether that's renting, right now in the midst of COVID-19, we had to make sure that people weren't evicted. We had to make sure that those who could not pay their mortgage wouldn't lose that home. That was Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who is the chair of the Financial Services Committee. When we talked about bringing the banks in because they were not giving loans to people because we didn't have people who looked like you and I or women in corporate positions because they refuse, even though there's a part of our legislation in Dodd-Frank that requires them to be transparent. They didn't do it. That's my subcommittee that we brought those banks in, and now they're doing that. When we think of criminal justice reform, when we think of reparations, we hear that a lot. Sheila Jackson Lee has been fighting hard for the reparations bill. When you think of those Black folks that were released, when you think about the fight between crack, cocaine, and how we got those sentences at the federal level reduced, Black members on the Judiciary Committee. When we were hollering impeachment, you had a sister, Congresswoman Val Demings, who brought it right home for us. The only person serving on the Intelligence Committee and the Judiciary Committee. So I can tell you we're at the forefront of everything. Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson was for a long time the first nurse and brought all kinds of STEM legislation. When we talk about Frederica Wilson in education, more than some 5,000 young boys just in the course of the time I've been there have benefited from her program and gone on to be all kinds of scholars. When we look at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, we produce scholars, people who do internships in our office, and they go on to be chiefs of staffs, lawyers, partners in law firms and lobbyists and medical doctors. And maybe the problem is we don't tell our story loud enough. And so maybe that's something. I think we should have a CBC 1-hour TV show where we go on and we tell our stories. You know, maybe we need
But you know what? Let me jump in there. But Congressman Beatty, here's the whole deal, though. And I did this with TV One's News One now. I did it with this show. I made it perfectly clear that we would have CBC members on these shows. This is what I said: 3 a week. That's 12 in a month. That means that we can actually, and I can even have more than that if we want to. And I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of CBC members not down with it. And so I think part of the deal, this is just me as a media person talking, I'm gonna go to Erica next with her question, is having a real conversation with the member saying, hey, there's a reason folk don't know. Like I kept yelling during the campaign, to your point, the CBC was driving the First Step Act, so why in the hell is Trump taking all this credit? Trump take credit for the HBCU stuff. That was Congresswoman Alma Adams. Luckily, she came on my show, but I'm telling you right now, sometimes it's hell to get one CBC member. And look, you've been on before, a host of others. You can't be on constantly, but there are a lot. I'm telling you right now, it's a lot of your members. They ain't trying to be aggressive out here talking to media. And what I keep saying, come talk to our platform. Now, maybe some folk are waiting for MSNBC to call. And what I'm arguing is, if they ain't calling, you better answer the call that is being made to you. But that's a part of it, letting our folk know what's happening on Capitol Hill so they are informed.
Well, let me just say thank you for that. And if I am successful, media and communication is number one. I mean, you have to tell your stories, and I think you have to tell it on all platforms.
Yep.
But as we're telling our story, having a platform that looks like us, covers stories about us, and you just rattled off a few. It's great. Alma Adams has done an incredible job with the HBCU caucus. Congresswoman Robin Kelly is over our Congressional Black Caucus Brain Trust. Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence is over the Women's Caucus. Congresswoman Marcia Fudge has done more in agriculture and SNAP for people. So those are some more things that we could be doing better. Congressman Jim Clyburn is probably the most powerful Black man in the country. He delivered President-elect Joe Biden. But before that, Jim Clyburn every week holds sessions with us to make sure that we are very clear on what our message should be as it relates to Black folks.
Erica, your question for Congresswoman Joyce Beatty.
Yes, good evening, Congresswoman Beatty. So good to be with you today. And I just want to say thank you to you all, the CBC members, because at the advent of COVID and for several months, you all did a flurry of town halls that were around a myriad of the issues that the Black community faced. And I want to say thank you for that. I got those emails because I'm plugged in with you all. But could you just share with the audience some of the outcomes that you all had from all of those different town halls where you did take questions from the audience? What are some of the outcomes that you all had from doing those calls?
Well, what was so good about that, and you're right, it was right pre-COVID. Congresswoman Karen Bass, who is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, has been brilliant in laying out a plan for us with our summits. We've been gathering that information and we used it just in time. So you always have to be prepared. The summit was the first week in February and we were hit hard the end of March and April with COVID-19. So when you think about the outcome, PPPs, we know the drill. When the first hundreds of billions of dollars went out, the small businesses, meaning businesses owners who look like us, they didn't get in the queue or the hopper to get any of those dollars. It was the Congressional Black Caucus and the Black members who chair and are chairs of subcommittees that took that data to go back to Congress to make sure that we had another round of money. And in those rounds of monies, we were able to allocate dollars to minority businesses and the small businesses, the beauty shops and the barber shops. We were able to do that. Out of that conference, we were able to get the Jobs and Justice Bill, the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill. That is a huge thing. We have been fighting all my life for voting rights, for the right to vote, and we still have voter suppression. So we took information out of that, and Congresswoman Karen Bass and members of the CBC, we're the author of that bill. And as Roland mentioned, the bill's passed the House, but the problem is we don't have control of the Senate, and they could care less about many of our issues. So we're fighting a lot of battles. And while people might not say that they don't know what we're doing, it's kind of like when you come home and all you know is you're eating, but you don't know how hard your parents worked to put that food on the table. So a better job, but we're putting a lot of food on the table for a lot of Black folks.
Greg Carr.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Congresswoman Beatty. I'm an Ohio State grad, so the name Beatty rings true in the state of Ohio. And I think the last time I saw you, you were on these airwaves after those police acted a fool in downtown Columbus. So it's good to see you again. Of course, no. Asking about your candidacy, particularly now that the CBC, of course, a quarter of the Democratic caucus, the Democratic representatives in Congress. This new quartet of folk that are coming in, Jamal Bowman, Richie Torres, Cori Bush, Mondaire Jones, saying they're in the tradition of Shirley Chisholm and Ron Denham's, your longtime colleague, of course, John Conyers and others. Does the Congressional Black Caucus have a role to play? I know it does, but how do you imagine the role of the Congressional Black Caucus in helping the Democratic Party stay together? Because it seems to me that the CBC, in addition to being the biggest, is maybe the most diverse ideological caucus in the Congress. So how are you going to herd those cats, Congresswoman Beatty? How you going to keep everybody together?
I think that's one of the best things about this job. And the new members coming in that you've mentioned, I've talked to all of them. They are talented, they are diverse, but they're excited and they're energetic. It's the same thing if we go back in history, and history certainly repeats itself. If you think of a young John Lewis, when he was taking on a Martin Luther King because he thought he was too conservative. He didn't think that he was radical enough. But it was John Lewis who took that microphone 57 years ago during the March on Washington. He pulled back a little in some of his language, but he delivered that message with the same spirit that needed to be delivered. I look at the additional folks who are coming in, it makes us that much stronger. One of the things I can tell you with the Congressional Black Caucus, we are strong, we are opinionated. This won't be the first time people came into our caucus and they came in all excited thinking that they were the entire caucus. They will be a part of our caucus because we are a family. We will stand together, we will fight together, and that's what we will take into the Democratic caucus. They will need us because keep in mind, when we go into the Democratic caucus as a whole, we still have criminal justice issues. We still have housing issues. So what we know, the issues are bigger than us. And the good thing about it, whether you are young and extremely progressive, whether you are a more veteran member, We all are fighting for criminal justice, for the economy, for housing, and for Black folks. There is nothing that is unwavering about that in our caucus. So we just have different ammunition to fight with. That's how I look at it. I'm excited. I've talked to them. They're excited. They're energetic. But here's the other thing. They're also smart. And when they get to Congress, they're going to need people to help guide them, just like I did when I came to Congress. And I can tell you, it was the best thing that I could ever have had, to have a Benny Thompson sit down with me and talk about Homeland Security, to be able to have members who have been there to educate you and wrap their arms around you. That is exactly what I'm going to do as I talk about building on our successes with those newer members who are coming in.
All right, Congressman Joyce Maid of Ohio, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, coming up next on Roland Martin Unfiltered, UPS, you can now wear your locks and a beard. Who knew? That others on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment. All right, folks, this is the Seat.com virtual reality headset. What happens is you just pop your phone right into here, and then when you close it up, you can actually look at the content on Seat.com, their VR content, or you can look at other 360-degree video that puts you right into the room. So, like, literally, you can just be looking all over. And so, Mary Spio is the founder of the company. She's the innovator behind this, a Black woman, sister from Ghana. And so that's their VR headset. They also have these 360-degree 4D headphones. A tremendous bass that covers all across your head. Great sound. Gamers love them. You can attach a headset to this as well. It's Bluetooth. Folks, if you want to get either one of these devices, go to Seek.com, Seek.com. That's Seek.com, Seek.com. Use the promo code RMVIP2020. RMVIP 2020, and check that out. And so we certainly appreciate them being partners with us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered, where we, of course, support Black-owned businesses like Seek.com. And also go to their site. You can also subscribe to their monthly content. That's right there on Seek.com. All right, folks, UPS is lifting several of its long-standing strict rules. Yeah, they had some strict rules at UPS, which included you couldn't actually have a beard, baseball teams had that crap. I always thought that was just stupid, that you couldn't have a beard, which I was trying to figure out what the hell that actually had to do with baseball. Same thing with delivering packages. What's the big deal? But that's the case there. And so they lifted these restrictions, but they did the exact same thing when it comes to hair. Now, look, Black folks, look at the Crown Act has been passing all across the public, and so they, are lifting those strict rules. Afros and braids were not allowed. Styles, of course, still have to be business appropriate and not pose a safety concern. They're also lifting gender-specific regulations like the length of the uniform's shorts as well. So we're seeing now, of course, it's nuts, Erica, in this country. We got to regulate hair, but look, anti-Blackness has always persisted in this country, and hair is one of those areas.
Yeah, here I am 17 years later, and I definitely understand that. That really makes me think about the military when, you think about the men that would grow their beards or would want to grow beards, and that was because Black men in shaving, usually with the razors, that presented hair bumps. And there were men that would have to really go through the process of getting a waiver, a shaving waiver, so that they didn't have to shave because the shaving actually irritated their skin. And some people were denied that waiver and still had to shave, even though it would irritate their skin. The same thing with locks. And I would tell people all of the time, this is the way that my hair grows out of my damn head. So, I can't use suave products. The products that I use on my hair are very much so tailored to that of a Black person, which our hair, usually can't be washed every day, right? As our counterparts who do have to wash their hair every day because of the oil buildup. So again, we're kind of seeing how racism does lead the day in this country, but then also that cash rules everything around this country, right? Because we're seeing that these adjustments were made right in time for online shopping. You have a lot more people that are going to be staying at home, a lot of people that are working from home, folks that are being advised not to travel. And so, in order to make sure that their bodies inside of those work trucks, then there has to be a laxing of some of the regulations, so to speak. But it's really just kind of lifting forward how, again, we see that here we are in 2020 and being told that we can wear our hair the way that it grows out of our head. And so UPS is just another company that has made that a law.
Look, bottom line, Reese, Crown Act was passed a year ago. We see, again, anti-blackness has been in legislation. That's what this is about. This ain't for white folks. Okay, beer, okay,
Yeah.
fine. But when you talk about locks, afros, that's about us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But I agree with Erica. It's really all about profit motive. The bottom line is now, UPS has to compete with Amazon, for instance, for deliveries. People can roll out of bed, get in their Honda, and go deliver a package to anybody's door, okay, thanks to Amazon and the way that they do things. And so if you want to compete, you have to adjust to the marketplace. You have to adjust to the demand and the supply. And the bottom line is that Black people, they don't have to work for UPS if they want to have a career in being a, delivery person. And so I think it's a wise move. And, perhaps to give them a little bit of goodwill. I'm not going to give them a cookie for that, but to your point, it is a shame that we have to continue to regulate this. I would love to see some movement on this if we do get a 50-50 Senate on the Crown Act that was introduced by, I believe, Senator Cory Booker. It's already been introduced in the House. This is one of those things we just have to take it national and ensure that people don't, and it's not just a corporate thing, but it's also people, children in schools who've had this hair discrimination. It's an issue and it has to stop yesterday.
Greg?
Yeah, no, funny you mentioned baseball, Roland. I was a Cincinnati Reds fan growing up. We could get them on the radio in Nashville. And they had a facial hair rule. So George Foster, Ken Griffey Sr., Ken Griffey Jr.'s daddy, all those Black ball players, when Dave Parker came to play for the Reds, everybody had to shave. And I remember when the Yankees made Oscar Gamble cut his afro. I think it was 1976. We were kids, man. That was absolutely aimed at Black men. So shout out to the Teamsters. 300,000 UPS employees represented by the Teamsters. Organized labor is important. You want to know why it matters? Elections matter. EOC forced the UPS into a settlement over religious exemptions a couple of years ago. It's very important. And I echo what Reese had said and what Eric had said. In a moment of COVID-19 and respect to everyone out here delivering packages and doing this work, they're going to hire a bunch more people. And frankly, they're going to put a lot of people in harm safe out there, UPS, because they're going to hire you and they have to lift this rule in part petition for those jobs.
All right then, folks. In 2002, Morris Brown College lost its accreditation. Financial mismanagement issues by the HBCU's president and top administrators led to the school's accreditation being revoked by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. They have been fighting to regain it ever since. Representatives for the college announced yesterday that its application for accreditation was approved by the Transnational Association of Christian Colleges and Schools, bringing them closer to their goal. Greg, why is this important? They've been fighting for a long time, and so clearly they're switching accreditation council. This has been one of the things that folks don't realize, and people also don't realize this accreditation piece is important because if they say pull it back, your students can't get financial aid. That means you're DOA.
That's right. And in fact, we should pause to commend the courage and the tenacity of Morris Brown College, particularly the alumni, because a lot of people don't know Morris Brown never closed the door.
No.
I remember when Morris Brown lost its accreditation. In fact, one of my two best friends in the world, Dr. Mario Beatty from Ohio, Cincinnati, ironically, one of the great scholars in historically Black colleges, was the chair of the African World Studies Department at Morris Brown. I used to go to his office in Fountain Hall. That was W.E.B. Du Bois's office, because those buildings used to be Atlanta University. And I've always told students, never omit Morris Brown when you name the colleges of the Atlanta University Center, because even though they lost their accreditation, you had folks who still went to Morris Brown. And so I remember when they lost it, I remember the circumstances, but it's important. And the fact that they've gone with this organization, National Association of Christian Colleges, They're not the only HBCU. Payne College in Augusta, Georgia, is a member of TAC. Also, Paul Quinn, that's doing some incredible things down there in Texas, and Shorter out of Arkansas. So Morris Brown will be the fourth. It's important because Morris Brown College, by the way, the only school in the Atlanta University Center named for a Black person, the second bishop of the AME Church, founded by the AME Church. Morris Brown is bigger than just Morris Brown. Morris Brown symbolizes Black self-determination. The Black church, founding a Black college that created Black graduates for well over near a century and a half. 1881 or 82, I think Morris Brown was founded. But Morris Brown being restored to full accreditation sends a signal across this country that Black people will not be denied. And if we have tenacity, we can get back to where we were. And so God bless the Wolverines. Shout out to y'all. Where they filmed the Drumline. We need that football.
But also where they filmed the Quad. That was on BET. And so I shot one of the episodes there. Actually, it was season 2, which happened to be the highest rated show that year. I'm just saying. It was the highest rated episode that season. I'm just saying. Don't hate, congratulate. I might let you celebrate. All right, y'all. I've seen some hilarious videos on social media. Oh my God, this is absolutely one of the funniest. This is is it a remake? I guess you can call it a remake of a Keith Sweat song. Y'all, watch this.
I can't believe it.
No.
All my dreams came true. America voted, and the country turned blue. We wanted Joe Biden for the next 4 years. We wanted Kamala, and now there's no need to fear. And who's commander-in-chief? Joe Biden. The one that Trump can't defeat. Joe Biden. Who can fix the economy? Joe Biden. Joe Biden, baby. Joe Biden. Who will treat us equally? Joe Biden. Who can give us what we need? Joe Biden. Who can take this virus down? Joe Biden, baby. Joe Biden.
Reese, I'm sorry. I saw that and I was like, yo, I got to play this one.
Let me tell you something. The 40% is trying to make themselves be known because most of the white folks voted for your president, Donald Trump. And put that in the song. Why don't y'all come out now, child? Let's not rewrite history. So I think if the 40% is like, not me, I didn't do that. Okay, that's fine. You was a little flat. But I give you A for effort because I guess you one of the good ones. I guess if we're gonna give you some credit, you're gonna go viral. I think Black people could have done a better remix, but congratulations for going viral.
I mean, look, there's some white folks voted for him. 30 to
40.
But here's the deal. Here's the deal, though. When you win, you need everybody. Bottom line is this is a close ass election. Every vote count. But I've been watching a lot of these videos, Greg. That I'm like, y'all really pull a Keith Sweat out. I got to test Keith to see what he think about that.
No, brother. Look, I have a friend who has a nephew and his little boy. He didn't answer. They asked him a question and he didn't say, "I don't know that." He said, "I cannot know it. I cannot know it, brother." I cannot know it. I cannot know it.
Erica?
I can't unhear that, brother. Why did you do that?
Come on, now I had to play it. I mean, it didn't fit in the crazy ass white people, but I had to play it.
Erica, that's me. Look, Erica, look at Erica. Look at her face. Look at her.
My forever move. That is my forever move.
Hey.
That's my forever move. That face, that frozen face, that's my forever move.
Hey, I saw it. I had to play it. All right, y'all. Last night, Country Music Awards had their show, and country music superstar Maureen Morris, Marie Morris, used her time in the spotlight at the CMA to honor some of the black female country artists. Here's her speech.
There are some names in my mind that I want to give recognition to because I'm just a fan of their music and they are country as it gets. And I just want them all to know how much we love them back. And just check out their music after this. It's Linda Martell, Yola, Mickey Guyton, Rissy Palmer, Brittany Spencer, Rhiannon Giddens. There are so many amazing black women that pioneered and continue to pioneer this genre. And I know they're gonna come after me, they've come before me, but you've made this genre so, so beautiful. I hope you know that we see you. Thank you for making me so inspired as a singer in this genre. And this has just been the most magical night. I get to go see my baby after this. Thank you, country music. This means the world. Thank you.
Folks, Linda Martell is a country music star that most of us never heard of. She made history as the first black woman to perform at the Grand Ole Opry, where she received a standing ovation. She left country music over 30 years ago and eventually ended up becoming a school bus driver. Racism would not let a black woman survive in the country music industry. Here's some video here of Martell performing. Check this out.
Linda Martell.
Living and working in the city, I thought I was a big girl. Oh, I felt so smart and my own life I was true. So Miss Smarty found herself a city boy who one night said he loved her.
That was a big thing right there for Morris to do that, Greg. You know, honoring the role of this sister black women played in country music. I mean, look, country music ain't nothing but white folks blues. And country music roots come out of the blues. I mean, that's just the reality.
No, that's right. I mean, you know, I grew up in Nashville, so we grew up listening to country music, man. The great D. Ford Bailey, who opened the Grand Ole Opry broadcast back in the 40s out of Nashville. For her to take the stage at the Ryman, the mother church of country music, is nothing but African, because we know those stringed instruments came out of West Africa. But Linda Martell, who's still alive in South Carolina, she made early hits. She had early recordings, like she recorded Color Him Father, a country music version. And that clip you just saw was showed with Ward Clark. That's off Hee Haw. We used to watch Hee Haw.
Yep.
Imagine
same here, my grandparents.
Oh, no question, brother. You already know. I mean, there was Charlie Pride for sure. But if Linda Martell hadn't run into that buzzsaw of sexism and that combination, she could have very easily been a household name just like Charlie Pride, brother. And she's still alive, sitting on the porch in South Carolina.
Well, I'll tell you what, it'd be nice if one of those country stars, Erica, would pull Linda Martell out of retirement and put it on an album.
Yeah, checks speak louder than words. So I mean that while her name was invoked and it should have been invoked, it should be invoked 365, 366 in the leap year. Cut the check.
Reese.
I think it was a very nice gesture.
I think it's important for us, again, because here's the deal. It's a lot of black folks who had no idea who the hell Linda Martell was until that last night, and then until that was actually played. Also, folks, look, this Saturday, astronaut Vic Glover launches to the International Space Station, and the National Museum of African American History and Culture will be a part of it. Here was what they announced today on social media.
Hi, I'm NASA astronaut Victor Glover. I'm scheduled to travel to the International Space Station as the pilot of SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft, and I invite you to follow along on our journey. I have always been a part of a team. Whether it was my time on the college wrestling and football teams at Cal Poly, or during my time in the Navy, working together as a team and supporting one another allows us to be better, to go further, and accomplish more than we could do alone. I will be traveling with fellow NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins and Shannon Walker, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Soichi Noguchi. We'll be part of Expedition 64, where we will live aboard the International Space Station for several months. While there, we will work as a team to complete science experiments, spacewalks, and to keep the space station clean and safe. All of these tasks are important to have a safe and successful mission. Our team is not limited to those aboard the space station. We will work with a team of scientists and engineers, as well as mission control all over the world. They will protect and guide us from the ground and support the science and other activities while we're in orbit and during our return to Earth. I will also be joining forces with 2 Smithsonian museums, the National Air and Space Museum and the National Museum of African American History and Culture. The museums will be helping us in space to keep in touch with all of you during our stay on the space station. I will be taking questions aboard the space station from students like you about what my time in space is like during an event with the Smithsonian. And while I'm in space, I want you to be involved and to become a part of our team. I believe that the same teamwork used by us at NASA to investigate extreme weather and to help unlock the secrets of the universe can be used to solve our most pressing issues here on Earth. If we hope to solve humanity's most important problems, we must work together. We need each other. Just as our society today is built on the work done in the past by people like Frederick Douglass, Ida B. Wells, Fannie Lou Hamer, John Lewis, and many others, our mission builds on the work of other astronauts, engineers, and scientists that have come before us, including Katherine Johnson, Mary Jackson, Dorothy Vaughan, Charlie Bolden, Alvin Drew, and Mae Jemison. They and many others have paved the way for us to work and live in space. We hope to continue their legacy. We ask that you join us in our commitment to excellence, teamwork, and communication. All teams need diverse members in terms of their backgrounds, skill sets, and ways of thinking. So I'm asking all of you to come together to complete a project about teamwork. I want you to show me what teamwork looks like in your life. Whether it's on a sports team, at your school, or in your community, but I want you to do it through art. The arts allow us to uniquely express ourselves and to connect with one another in new and exciting ways. Coming together through the arts can help us to create a better and more beautiful world. It will take all of us exploring, learning, and sharing to create a better future for humanity. Let's explore together.
You can get more information on the NMAAHC website. All right, folks, Lucille Bridges, the mother of civil rights activist Ruby Bridges, who walked with her then 6-year-old daughter past crowds screaming racist slurs as she became the first black student at her all-white New Orleans elementary school, has died at the age of 86. Her daughter went on to become an icon of the civil rights movement, memorialized in Norman Rockwell's famous painting, The Problem We All Live With, which depicts a tiny Ruby in a white dress carrying her notebooks and a ruler surrounded by much taller U.S. Marshals. Ruby once credited her parents as the forces behind her history-making achievement. The image of Ruby from the Norman Rockwell painting has gotten renewed attention in recent years as an adapted version that shows Vice President-elect Kamala Harris walking beside her. We certainly send our thoughts and prayers to Ruby Bridges and all of those who love her mother, Lucille. I'll start with you, Greg. The reason this matters is because when we start talking about the work of the children during the movement, Little Rock Nine, Ruby Bridges, those were parents making decisions to say, we're going into that school. We can't just talk about Ruby Bridges had courage. Her mama and daddy had to have some courage.
Roland, the greatest untold story, because it's not important to white America, but we should know it. The greatest untold story of desegregation of public education is the story of the parents and the teachers in the segregated schools. The American was the Black Teachers Association. Thurgood Marshall, Oliver Hill, the great Donald Hollowell out of Georgia, they all said, all the lawyers who argued those cases said it was the teachers in concert with the parents. We know the Little Rock Nine, but all of those students had come out of Paul Laurence Dunbar High School out of Little Rock, Arkansas, that had then been closed to another black high school, and then they went in there. So when you see that child, Ruby Bridges, go up those steps, you're looking at her mother, you're looking at her community, you're looking at her teachers, because that was the best we had. And frankly, America didn't deserve that child and her mother then and doesn't deserve them now. So it's important for us to understand that all the people spitting on children, she got to walk in there with an armed guard. There's more courage in the Bridges family than the entire United of America, as far as I'm concerned, and you still haven't done right by it. By the way, I think Jerry Rawlings, president of Ghana,
And,
president of Ghana.
actually, I was going to cover that. Erica and then Reese. Erica, go ahead.
Yeah, I echo and amen everything that Dr. Carr said. And it's most important to remember that you were dealing with parents who had little to no education when they made such a brave decision. So for, again, just to go back to people who talk about, they're not their ancestors, you can get these hands, baby. You could never, the level of sacrifice that was made at that time, which were incredibly more turbulent and more dangerous than times are before. People could never make those decisions that the now late ancestor, Miss Bridges, did. And then also just to think about, her passing, we think about that she's someone the same age as many folks' grandparents, and that we're still just one generation removed from segregation. So much love, much honor to the Bridges family. And I echo what Dr. Carr said, that, the United States really doesn't deserve the courage and the bravery put forth by this woman and the husband.
And go right ahead, Reese.
Yeah, I definitely have to echo what Dr. Carr and Erica just said. I absolutely extend my condolences to the Bridges family. And, this is history that's not very far removed. If you even look at Ruby Bridges, she's a couple of years, there's a couple of years age difference between her and VP-elect Kamala Harris, who also was part of the second class to desegregate her school, obviously on completely different conditions in Oakland. But this is still present. It's not even American history. It's not just Black history. This is the stuff that we're still dealing with. Segregation is still a thing in our school systems right now. And so absolutely, we need to give more credit to these unsung heroes. We need to tell their stories. We need to say their names, and we need to honor them. And when they speak, when our ancestors speak, or when our elders speak, we need to hold their opinions in higher esteem and understand the history. I saw, the one last thing I will say is, I saw a person on Twitter, and this is, just one of those, flame throwing people that has a large account, saying, we need to start disrespecting our elders.
What?
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. That's insane. That's literally insane. We need to put some respect on these experiences that are not far removed. And thank God, at least for now, with VP-elect Kamala Harris and President-elect Biden, we've held it off a little while longer. We don't know how much longer that will be, but we've held off the worst of what could have happened if Trump and Pence got reelected with the McConnell majority. So, now is certainly the time to really understand where we came from, how far we have left to go, and to really take those lessons with us going forward.
And to the point, this is the last item before we go to the point Greg made. Also, Ghana lost a revolutionary today, a Pan-Africanist, someone who was a military leader, took over a military coup of Ghana, then became a runoff. Jerry Rawlings actually passed away today in Ghana. He, of course, was someone who led that nation and created, in essence, the stability. I mean, if you talk about African nations, Ghana is deemed to be considered one of the most stable, and of course led them into that. And then they've had successive leaders in that particular country, and is looked to by many people as a crown jewel. I had an opportunity to meet Rawlings. I was in Chicago. He came there. They had a huge Ghanaian festival in Chicago, and he came in town to speak there, and he stayed with and had dinner at the home of Minister Louis Farrakhan. I was a participant that particular night and got a chance to meet him. That's when I was there running Chicago Defender. Greg, a Pan-Africanist, someone who was a fierce protector of African nations and African sovereignty.
Brother, Rollins is a funny dude. I mean, he come in a room and fill it up. I met him in South Africa at a Steve Biko conference. And he start talking and he tell you, like, let me just, and you could see the force of personality. And, my sister, Ajua Batwe Asmawa, who had a lot to do with the Crown Act and, of course, is Ghanaian. Ghana's in mourning tonight. Rollins just buried his mother, I don't even think it was 2 weeks ago. And he had COVID. So, we don't know what the cause of death was, but Jerry Rawlings, who in military coup did take over twice, but stepped back and came back into office as an elected person. represents the spirit of Africa and represents the fact that leave Africa alone and Africa will be just fine. So yeah, travel well, brother.
On tomorrow's show, we will pay further tribute to him and have experts on to talk about what his role meant, and then what it meant for leadership of other African nations. And so we'll have that tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered. Again, that's why this show matters, folks, because trust me, I doubt very seriously mainstream media is going to give any attention to the passing of Jerry Rawlings, where a lot of people in this country connected with him, folks like Andrew Young, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., and so many others. And so we'll pay tribute to Jerry Rawlings tomorrow right on this show. So please support us in what we do. Jordy, our Bring the Funk Fan Club. You can join us via Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, paypal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. You can send a money order to New Vision Media, NU Vision Media Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. Always a pleasure. Reese, Erica, and Greg Carr, thank you so very much. We shall see y'all folks tomorrow. You know how we always end the show. I'm going to let y'all go ahead and say it. I always end it the same way. Y'all can go ahead and say it this time on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Holla!